I want you to get together.
Hello, everyone. So, it's that time of year, it's that date, it's the anniversary or the remembrance date of that world changing event, that thing that happened 23 years ago that changed everything psychologically for a lot of people. It's probably the nicest way of putting it, the most politically correct way, the calmest, politest way of phrasing this, but things weren't really the same after that horrible possible sacrifice that took place on that day. I mean, how old would I have been? I would have been 9, 11. I would have been maybe see what I did there. No, I would have been about 11. I think I would have been 11. What am I? I'm 30. No, I'm 32 now. And if it was 23 years ago, my math was never my strong point. I may have been 9 years old. I know I was in what we call in the UK primary school. And I do distinctly remember walking through the hall of my primary school into the assembly area. And I remember us all being sat down and with us all sat in rows, in a big group in the centre of this square assembly area with the stairs behind us, looking at these teachers all lined up at the front, looking dead serious and somber, and they just say to us, you can go home early today. Something's happened, we're going to let you go home early. And I didn't understand why that would have happened to me then, now in hindsight. I mean, we're in the UK, and I know it was a horrible event. It's kind of like, well, why do I have to go home from school because of this? It's kind of like everything had to just stop. The whole world stood still. And me, thousands of miles across the Atlantic, some 9-year-old in primary school got to go home early, and that was odd in and of itself. In of itself, that's strange. That's very strange, is it not? And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand anything. I'm 9. What do I know? But I go home, and my mum and dad. By the way, I only live around the corner from this primary school, so it was easy enough to walk home. I walked home, and I come in, and my mum and dad are there watching TV. And yeah, it's all there on the television, the smoke going up, and the towers just coming down, decimated, absolutely decimated. And everyone's dead sad and somber, and I don't know what to do with that as a 9-year-old. Or what to make of it. Things were probably said, I don't remember any of it. And, days and life went on, and I never really thought much about it, I suppose. But it was always there. It was always kind of in the air. And as the years went by and I went into my teenage years, I could see things change. Or people were telling me that things were changing drastically as well. Heightened security everywhere, more cameras everywhere, a sense of distrust, neighborly distrust everywhere, racial tensions increasing, all these typical things, and things were less safe, metaphorically. People didn't feel safe anymore. I remember that as a child. I remember the way it made me feel more so than the actual nuanced the event itself. I remember how the event made me feel more so than what actually happened. It was only years and years and years after the fact, when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, did I even start to question these things and look into that event and wonder what happened there. And quite quickly, when you start to look into it, you see it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. Not one part of that official narrative is grounded in reality at all. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure if you're here, I'm sure you've looked into it enough now to know they lied about what happened that day. They were built to be destroyed. That much is clear. It was a plan in the making for decades. So, with that knowledge accrued, what did I do? What did anybody do? You start digging deeper, and you start making connections. And before you know it, this enormous web has been created that goes way deep into bloodlines, power families, long-term secret society agendas, full media control, and it's kind of, you uncovered this enormous conspiracy, and it's like, well, that event that I'm initially discussing here, it starts to shrink into levels of importance, doesn't it? It's not the big thing anymore. It's like one small piece to an enormously complex giant head. A complete. It's just a horrible image, isn't it? It's this enormous hydra monstrosity of a conspiracy, and that thing to these people was probably just a small sacrifice. It was nothing. It was nothing to them. And it was imbued with all the occult symbols, the IXXI Roman numeral representation of those numbers, which looks like two pillars with the Freemasonic square and compass in the center. It's the portal, it's the opening to the underworld in their eyes. It's the gate, or the way to gnosis or knowledge, or to the little G, the Freemason G God. It's all there with the eye in the center, and it's kind of. It was just a ritual. It was a giant sacrifice ritual, and they're laughing at us, and they used it as an excuse to make huge changes to laws and to the times that can never go back. That's it now. That's the way it is, and this new change is forever the way it is, and a psychological gaslighting, mass gaslighting, psychological warfare event was played out on everybody, and nobody's the same since, and nobody trusts each other anymore, and everyone is on edge and terrified. That day was a huge day for so many people. Not just because people lost their lives, which is awful and sad. Not just because a landmark or a landscape was forever changed. And not just because fears were imbued into people and attitudes were changed towards our fellow man that day. But also because that's when people started to wake up. That was the event that got people questioning official narratives. For the first, really, realistically, for the first time. There's always been those people out there, like, questioning whether the government's hiding aliens from us, what really went down in Roswell, or JFK. It's kind of like, what was going on with JFK? Why was he really taken out? There's always been people asking questions. But I mean, on the scale we're talking about here, that was the day that kicked it off, and people started to actually question things. And I look back at that event, and I like I say, it's been over a decade now. It's been 23 years. It was 10 years ago. I did all my study on that thing, and it's kind of in retrospective, what do you call it? Like nostalgia. You got retrospective nostalgia on that, on my research into those things. It's kind of, I look at it now. And it's kind of like, why? Well, obviously it was all false, and it was a false flag, or whatever you want to call it, or it was a convoluted, created, scripted event. It's obvious it was. It's not even like they've tried very hard to hide it. They blatantly made it obvious what they were doing there. Like, the controllers truly showed their hand with that event. They showed, we're here. We exist, and yes, we control everything, and you will believe what we tell you. That's basically what that event was. It was kind of, we know, this is all made up. We know, that we're here and we created this disaster. We know, what are you going to do about it? That's kind of the attitude of that whole event. That's the message I got from it. It was the controllers showing their existence, showing that they create the events. They orchestrate the disasters. They have scripted our reality. What are you going to do about it? It was like a brazen, in-your-face, poorly covered up event. Like, they wanted us to know they were there. They wanted us to discover all the holes in the narrative. They wanted us to see they lied. They weren't trying to hide it, that they lied, really. Just enough to have that plausible deniability. But it's like they gaslit you. It's kind of like, no one's going to believe you type of attitude. Yeah, we did it. We're going to go and try and tell people, go on, they'll laugh in your face. They're not going to believe you, you know. It's that kind of attitude, wasn't it? But at the same time, it's like anybody who just slightly use their cognitive faculties just a little bit, you know, can see that whole thing was just a scripted mess. Like, it was done on purpose. It's a controlled event. Every little bit of it was controlled. You know, and people died. Like, but not for the reasons they tell us. And agendas were pushed afterwards. And it was obvious they were pushing those agendas afterwards. They didn't even hide that they were doing that and using that event as a convenient event just to get away with the next policy change. The more controls to make the cage a bit smaller, you know. But they weren't hiding it. They were laughing all the way. And at first, voices were outraged. We had those contingents of people, like what truly went down on 9/11, you know, what truly happened that day type of thing. And there was Netflix documentaries and YouTube mockumentaries and all these type of things and videos coming out all over the place, you know, and it was like the official controlled opposition narrative. The counter narrative was controlled by the people who came up with the fake narrative to begin with, you know. They were using their media formats to foment distrust. It's kind of like they wanted people to distrust the government. You know, they want people to know they're there. But it's kind of drip feed released, and like they controlled how people discovered they were there as well. To the point where people, it's like, well, if they do control everything, what can I do? It's that kind of thing. It's like the whole thing was like a really complex but poorly written out psychological warfare event. It was messed up, wasn't it? It was messed up, right? Like when you really think about it, it's bad enough what they did. Just the event itself was awful. But the way they used it and how they didn't even try to hide very well that they caused it either. Why? Why make it so obvious? And I think we have to talk about, if you're a conspiracy theorist worth his salt, you have to discuss, okay, so there is an agenda at play to externalize the hidden hand. The externalization of the hierarchy. Okay, and this is a theosophical concept coming out of the thought schools of theosophy from people like Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. You know, these are the main two proponents, but there's many students upon this, and even today the Theosophical Society continues, and they're kind of like a hermeneutic, Gnostic, Luciferian, hybridized, all religions mashed into one philosophical think tank. You know, they're very odd. And Alice Bailey created a newspaper called Lucifer, okay, the Lightbringer, and that has amalgamated today into this other lobbying group called the Lucis Trust today. You know, and they have this philosophy, this idea that all that is hidden will become known, but the public, it'll become known in a way in which the public accepts it as a reality that's immutable and unchangeable, and they won't try and do anything to rebel against the reality once it's made known. And they have this long plan, like 100-year plan, you know, to reveal themselves as the hidden secret hands of all of reality, the culture creators, you know, the ones in control. And their end goal is to get everybody to accept them and their religion and belief that Lucifer is the true god of this world, the light bringer, the bringer of knowledge, you know. But because of the hold of Christendom, you know, and people's old world religious superstitions that have the grips over the Western world and other parts of the world, it's kind of, we can't just reveal ourselves straight away because they'll rebel straight away and call us Satanists and evil and kill us, And it's kind of, well, let's call a spade a spade. You are Satanists. You are Luciferians. Okay? So maybe people would be a bit sus if you came out and said, yeah, we worship Lucifer and you should too, So they have to do it slowly. And a part of this plan, it seems, I imagine, is to create and foment events which reveal them. But they have to do it in, like I said, a plausibly deniable way. So they start things like the truth movement. Okay, now the truth movement really is something that developed after that event, wasn't it? As a more cohesive contingent group of people. And the people who were a part of it initially weren't lying. They were sincere. They were really revealing all the truths, about what happened that day and all these hidden dodgy things behind the scenes that were clearly movements of paper and money that were obviously planned well ahead of time. The complete disregard of Tower Number 7 and all these other things, the fake footage and the lies about what happened at the Pentagon and the rest and all the occult symbolisms. All this stuff was being exposed and it was obvious and it was there. And I think the people exposing it were genuinely sincere people thinking they were helping the world discover the truth, and to reveal the evil controllers of the world. But the sad thing is now, like I said, in nostalgic retrospective viewpoints, that's kind of what they wanted us to do. They wanted us to reveal the truth. They wanted us to find all the obviously placed evidence that was just poorly hidden and there for you to find. They wanted us to know all these things because they were trying to externalize themselves, but in a controlled way. So people were screaming, there's this evil cabal of people who control the world who are orchestrating these events. And then there was the counter narrative on the other media news saying crazy conspiracy theorists saying crazy things and giving examples of, you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, do you? They call themselves the truth movement. And it's kind of, well, really, it's a bunch of whack jobs who clearly don't know what they're talking about and have given into self-delusion. The government is always telling you the truth type of thing. But it's kind of like even the counter to this new truth movement was purposely being antagonistic and obviously evil. So more people would lean into the truth movement more and say, the media's lying to me. Look at them. Look at those snakes. Look at the way they're talking about these truth people. It's like these people are just trying to get the truth out, and they're obviously like evil, controlled corporate media trying to smear these good people. And it's kind of, but they were obviously being like that. It's kind of, we got played in a way. We were getting played. And a lot of people focused heavily on the symbolisms of these events, subsequent events after that, going into, the noughties to the tens. A lot of stuff went down in that time that we've probably forgotten about. The things I'm probably not even allowed to say. But it was horrible, more sacrificial-like events that involved people running, for example, or children studying, and these things being cut short. Stuff happened, okay, and odd videos got released that started to foment a disbelief or distrust in religious ideals that were the norm, like Christianity. So the zeitgeist appeared, and what else happened? We had iPet Go 2 appear out of nowhere, and people were obsessively trying to decode things and finding signs and numbers and symbols in lots of things, and it was kind of getting a bit wild. It was a wild west of conspiracy during that time, of the early time of the internet, where there was no real censorship at all, and people were just speculating and wildly theorizing and showing the truths and the hidden symbols and everything all over the place. It was a confusing time to be a truther, to be a conspiracy theorist, because there was just so much. It was just bombarding us all over the place, and we were kind of taken for a ride during that time. Blown in the wind, I suppose, like a crisp packet in the wind. We were just flying around all over the place, whim to whatever the next big thing was, and we all had the mindset, oh, we get it, we know what's going on, we have the truth, and those sheep all over there haven't got a clue what's going on. Look at them going along with the agenda like idiots. What do they know? They need to wake up like us. And steadily, more and more people were waking up and joining the truther ranks, and the conspiracy theorist type was becoming more of a norm, especially into today's age. Now, I think nowadays you'd be hard pressed not to find somebody who's skeptical and is a conspiracy theorist. And we all know that we're being controlled right today. We all know that we can't trust the media. We can't trust a word they're saying. It's all controlled narratives. It's all orchestrated by rich, Kabbalistic, high-end occultists who are clearly satanic. I say these things now, and it's kind of this is absurd to say 20 years ago, but now it's like, yeah, obviously, duh. But that's it, isn't it? That's the point. 23 years after that day, the whole world knows that we're being controlled. We know our governments are all owned. We know it's all orchestrated and fabricated. We know all this, whether it's consciously or subconsciously now. It's been made clear. We've had enough tongue-in-cheek cartoons and movies come out telling us this over and over again since then as well. We've had enough obvious, convoluted events which have clearly shown our leaders to be against us, wanting us to die and utterly corrupt. We've had enough of these things obviously be revealed now for us to all know to some level, okay, yeah, it's all controlled. It's all a mess. It's not what I thought it was. You know, we all know this now, and we're okay with it. Maybe okay with it isn't the right word, but we're passive about it. We're ambivalent towards this fact. We're jaded. We're like apathetic about it. It's like, yeah, they control the world, but so what, you know? That's the general gist of the idea, you know. And some people think like, oh well, we have our people out there, you know, fighting against them. You know, we've got our Elon Musks out there, you know, who are on our side, you know, or our political figures who are, you know, who we could just vote in every election and make everything perfect. Some people still buy into that crap. You know, but most people are waking up to the fact that all of them are in on it. They're all in on it, and we know that. Okay, we do know that. And it's kind of... They've done it, haven't they? They've externalized the hierarchy perfectly. Everyone knows about the Illuminati now. Everyone knows about the pyramid with the eye. Everyone knows all the signs and the symbols in the movies. It's not even like it. It's expected now. It's like if it hasn't got one, we're like, well, where was it? It's kind of, not even a hidden 13 somewhere or a 322. Come on, throw something towards it. You got to give us something now, right? Why else am I watching these crappy movies anymore if I'm not just doing it for the decoding the symbolism? You know, you got to give us something, yeah? And that's kind of how sad it is. It's like we are fully a part of the world in that respect. They have externalized themselves. They've made themselves known to the public, and we're okay with it. And now it's more insidious than that. Because the truth movement, though it started off predominantly anti-capitalist, anti-billionaire, anti-cabal, you know, pro-democracy, pro-patriotism, you know, the truth, and it started off not really religious in any way. And then you had the new age types arising. It's all about consciousness expansion, the man trying to bring us down. We've all got to, you know, decalcify our pineal glands, that type of thing. We're going to get back to nature, you know, we're going to boycott the major corporations and start going all herbal and natural. There was that kind of contingent, and then there was the other contingent of like, you know, we're Christian, you know, it's all about God, we're going to get right with Jesus, tribulation's coming, this is signs of the end times coming upon us, this is Satan wandering on like a roaring lion, seeking whoever he may devour. The signs of the times say tribulation's about to come upon us, the veil's going to be lifted, the vials will be poured out, the trumpets will be blown, you know, get right with God now. You have all these factions fighting each other and say, you know, my way or the highway to interpret conspiracy. And it's kind of, well, all of it was just a show. Because now Gnosticism is on the rise. And this is the natural progression of it all. Everyone's so disillusioned and apathetic that people, and obviously the new age, cheesy, nonsensical worldview is now fallen to the wayside, which basically is basic theosophy. Now advanced theosophy is kicking in. And now the people are being brainwashed through the truth movement into Gnostic, luciferian ideologies. Okay, and Gnosticism is a very loose term to describe a vast umbrella of beliefs. And I'm not going to get into defining Gnosticism today because no matter what I do, everyone's just saying, well, that's not true Gnosticism. You don't really know what you're talking about, you know. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's a pernicious, parasitical ideology that latches on to other ideologies, and it's insidious. It's insidious is what it is. And it's basically a theosophy. It's luciferianism at its core. And that's the ideology people are being brainwashed with now. And if they're not being brainwashed with real theosophical, sophist, like, alchemical, hermeneutical type ideologies resurrected, these old world ideologies resurrected, then the less religious types are being brainwashed with the it's a simulation version, which is the same thing. It's just without the religion involved, because, Gnostics loosely have this idea that the world we live in is a flesh prison created by a stupid, vindictive god, lesser god, that we need to escape his creation in order to become the true homogeneous beings that we actually are, the androgynous, homogeneous beings that we truly are, made by the true architect of the universe. Well, the Matrix is basically that, the world we live in is an illusion, holographic projection to keep us trapped here, and we're being used for energy. It's the same concept. So whether you're religious or not, you've been given this ideology, you've been drip feed this idea that the world is a bad place, it's a trap that we need to escape in some way. And that's been fermented through the horrors and these events and these horrible things, and some kind of weird bastardized twisted scientism. Is that what you would call it? Mystic scientism. And that's a part of that externalization of the hierarchy. So now we've got the people to believe that we exist and know we exist. Now we're going to have to get them to believe our religion as well. So they're on board with us. Not only did they know that we're here, but they're also on our side now and believe what we believe. So that's all in play now. It's all happening right now. We're in the throes of all of this. And we've been played, haven't we? Like my channel's called Understanding Conspiracy. When I started the channel 10 years ago, I wanted to understand what is going on. What are people seeing and researching and reading and listening to that's making them say these things? Like, the world's going to end in 2012. What the hell? Like, what can make somebody think that, possibly? So I went into this research with the aim to understand it. I want to understand the conspiracy. Not conspiracy theories, although that's a part of the process and we can talk about them. The whole thing. What is it? Why is it happening? And I think I'm loosely trying to explain it to you here now, in this stream of consciousness where I'm trying to piece my own thoughts together, It's kind of, it seems like the conspiracy is to make us know the controls are here through a series of orchestrated events. But not only that, to also make us be on their side and believe in them and want to be a part of it. And I think that's pretty much happened. And I say it today, on this day, 23 years after the fact, because that was like a moment where it's like the game began. Up until that point, they'd remained hidden and didn't want anyone to know they were there, basically. And those who did out them were killed or silenced or removed or taken away. It's kind of like, yeah, we're here, but it's not time yet for the people to know we're here, so you've got to shut up. That's pretty much what it was then. But after that day, at the turn of the millennium, it's okay to talk about them now. They kind of want you to talk about them. And a lot of us who think we've been exposing the evil Illuminati Satanists, we've actually been helping their agenda. That's what you've been doing. That's what we've all been doing. And it's kind of, the setting is up for an even grander plan, I think I've kind of realised with this Millennial Kingdom stuff. It seems like the whole point was to make us believe that Jesus is about to return. To put an end to the obvious evil that controls the world currently. The people causing earthquakes, the people causing war and destruction and pestilence and genocides, the people doing all these obviously terrible things to us from these secret cabals, those of the synagogue of Satan, who are obviously here pretending to be Jews but are not. All the signs are there that indicate this is mid Revelation stuff. It looks like Christ is about to return. All the signs are here. But that's the point. The externalization of the hierarchy is a part of that plan to make you believe you're in that time before Christ reveals himself. The revelation, it's the end of all things, where all things that were hidden will become known type of stuff. And then there's going to be a horrible cataclysmic event that barely anybody's going to survive, right? That's what we all believe is about to happen. If you're a Christian, especially in tribulation's coming, well, it comes with a horrific 7-year period, though they say. It's up for debate how long that actually is, but it comes with this period of time where humanity just gets wiped out, and no flesh would be left if those days weren't cut short, and we're meant to believe they will be cut short. And then most Christians believe then a new heaven and earth forever and ever and ever, and everything's perfect. That's not what he says, is it? And we know that now because we've been doing the work. That's not what happens. Okay, and this futurist Darby-esque invention, this from the footnotes of a rewritten Bible in the 1800s, where people believe all prophecy is yet to be fulfilled in the future. This dispensationalist re-emergence building of the third temple nonsense is all new. It's all a new ideology. But that's what we've all been indoctrinated to believe. If you are a Christian today, you are allowed to believe that, and no one's going to silence you. No one's going to stop you from saying these things. You're allowed to get your 501c3 church in this world and build it into a mega church with millions, if not hundreds of thousands of followers. And you preach, brother, preach that Christ is about to return. Go ahead. They ain't gonna stop you, because that's the point. I was talking with Joe on Alpha Talks recently, and he showed this clip. It's Tucker Carlson talking to somebody, and I'm not sure what it is. Wait for Joe's video to come out soon. I'm sure he'll showcase this better than I can. But the guy basically says, even the apostles got this wrong, but they were all like, Jesus is about to return pretty soon. And it's that phrase, the apostles got this wrong because Christ didn't return in their time. It's like the audacity of a Christian to say that the apostles of Jesus Christ, which we base our faith upon their writings after Christ's ascension, are wrong. What kind of cognitive dissonance must you have as a Christian to think that the apostles were wrong? Is it possible? Through Occam's razor, the simplest answer is the truth. They were right. They were telling the truth when they said Christ is about to return imminently. That Christ did just return imminently. Instead of twisting ourselves into pretzels and into knots to turn an X into a Y, because you've believed X for so long that it's impossible to know Y and accept Y, that you have to mutilate X and extend 2,000 years in there somehow to make it seem like it fits with the narrative of Y. Or could it not just be that it's Y? You've been believing the wrong thing. Christ has returned, and he's already been here for 1,000 years, ruling, whether that be in heaven or on earth physically, and we're now in the aftermath of the 1,000-year reign of Christ, which most people don't even know about. Most modern Christians don't know about the millennial kingdom. They don't know about the 1,000 years where the devil is locked away. They don't know about this period of time where people are resurrected as saints to rule with Christ for 1,000 physical years on earth. And they don't even know that when that ends, and it has an end, Satan is released and allowed to rule for a short time. They don't know that. So in retrospect, looking back at, the past 20 years, with the externalization of the hierarchy agenda in full swing and pretty much succeeding, we all know they exist now, we're all doing nothing about it, we're passive about it, we've all accepted that they're there, and what are we going to do? Whatever, let's get on with my own life. It's fine if they're there, let them do their thing, whatever. Well, that's what Satan would do in a little season, wouldn't it? That's how he would do it. He'd be released, and spend a few hundred years slowly revealing himself to be who the true God of this world, which he technically kind of is for a short period, but not really. You know, Christ is in control, always has been. He never left the earth. Satan's on a short lead, you know, but he's in control. He's calling the shots for a short period in a physical sense, you know. God's always in control. Always have faith in that, but it's his little season. And we've been given over, haven't we? And people who have reprobate minds are fully into this. They're all for Satan and his little season. Okay? And he's been revealing himself, and more people have been accepting that he exists, that his people are here controlling us, and are wanting to be a part of it, and are rejecting God, and turning to Satan, and saying, give me everything. Give me all the kingdoms. I'll bow down to you. And that's what he's been doing slowly. He's been externalizing his existence and his control so people accept him and even like him and want him to be in control. And that's how you build an army. Armies don't just fight for money. You know, if you could pay people to fight in your army, mercenaries, but the guns for hire, they'll drop their weapons and turn them on you if someone offers them a better thing. You know, or if they're not willing to die for your cause, they'll take the money and run. They don't really care. Okay? To get people to fervently believe that they're doing the right thing when they gather an army the number of the sands of the sea and make war with the camp of saints, something's driving that more than just getting loads of stuff or getting paid a lot of money. Something else is driving that drive to believe it's the correct thing to surround a camp of advanced humans who are like godlike in nature and next to God. Whether they understand that's what they're doing or not, but still, something else is driving that. A passion is behind that kind of fervent following of leadership. So Satan's going to have convinced a lot of people to follow him with love, with sincerity. Now, if this externalization of the hierarchy comes with indoctrinating people into a luciferian ideology that Lucifer's the good guy, he just wants you to know stuff. He wants you to be like a god. God doesn't want you to be like him, but Lucifer's giving you the fire. Lucifer's Prometheus. He stole the fire of the gods and gave it to humanity, and he got punished for that. Is that fair? That's not fair, is it? What kind of loving God doesn't want you to have all the knowledge? Lucifer wants you to be free. Lucifer's your savior. Lucifer's truly the one that's come to set you free, not Jesus. You know, Jesus works for the man. Jesus is just the son of the prison keeper. You know, he's there to keep you locked in prison. Lucifer's here to get you out. You know. Well, that's pretty much what everyone believes. That's what everyone's being slowly indoctrinated to believe. Yes, that's pretty much the agenda in full swing. That's the theosophical worldview. That's what the externalization of the hierarchy has revealed to us. That these people who control us, who are orchestrating all these terrible events, well, they're actually doing it for a greater good, you see. They're provoking God to act so they can find a way to get themselves out, you know. They're provoking God to do horrible things and to act and bring destruction upon us so people can see what a cruel person he actually is, you know. They'll have there's many reasons for this, but they're getting us on their side. They're getting us to see it from their perspective, from Lucifer's perspective. They're trying to get us, which, by the way, is bullshit. I gotta make that clear. Like, that's not really what Lucifer believes. He's not trying to help you. He's not your friend. Lucifer doesn't actually care about giving you knowledge. He wants to kill you. He wants you dead. He hates you. You're his enemy. As soon as Adam was created, you were deemed his enemy. You were put above him, and he didn't like that. It's as simple. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to utterly destroy man. Just to forsake God. That's all it's for. It's petulance. It's petty, childish petulance. That's all it really is. But he's convincing people, no, I'm your buddy. I'm your friend. Yeah, I just want you to be a god. You know, I want to give you all this knowledge. Yeah, that's all it is. It's nonsense. But people are falling for hook, line, and sinker today because they've been absolutely brainwashed, controlled, and taken for a psychologically mind-numbing ride. That people have been gaslit to no ends and utterly just defeated and trodden upon and torn apart and trampled by the world, which Satan's currently running. You know, it's his little season. That people are seeking for answers, seeking for a way out. They want God. and instead they're getting Lucifer. And that's the game. That is the game that we're kind of all being played against here. And the little season theory finally contextualizes it all. It really does. And look, you can still know Jesus, have a true relationship with God, and live happily in this world because he is still in control. Fundamentally, he is above all. Okay? And you can have a relationship with God through his Son, Jesus Christ. Or you can be of the world, you can lust after worldly things, and Lucifer could be your God instead. Okay, you can lust after kingdoms, fame, money, and wealth. Or you can yearn for a relationship with God and have a place in his heavenly kingdom after all of this. That's the choice, really, isn't it? That's it. That's always been the choice. So that hasn't changed because we're in a little season. And if you want a relationship with Christ, ask, and he will reveal himself. You shall receive. Trust me, it's happened to me. I'm just saying. I'm talking from experience. I'm telling you, I asked and I received. You receive inner peace, a calm, a sense of identity, a true sense of identity. You know who you are and what God truly intended for you. Death has lost its sting. It's like, oh, they might take my life, but they'll never take my salvation. You're free. You're free from that misery, that concept, that pain. And yes, death is sad. Jesus wept. But it's not the end. Okay, it's not the end. And the finality of existence is the fear that they're depending on to keep you in control. All gets blown out of the water when you learn Christ fulfilled his promise and established his millennial kingdom on earth for 1,000 years, and we're in Satan's little season. Then you know he's real. He's real. We haven't been waiting 2,000 years and Christ hasn't turned up yet because clearly he was a liar and the apostles were wrong. No, they were right. He fulfilled his promise. And what comes next is the eternal kingdom after this short time. That's what we need to get ready for, guys. That's where the blessed hope truly is. That's what it is. That's where it truly is. And if we're focusing on Christ is about to return and tribulation's about to come upon us because they've convoluted all this mess and these signs for us to believe we're in that false timeline, then what's going to get presented to you is not going to be Christ. It's not going to be him. It's going to be the devil or Lucifer or Satan or whatever title you want to give this adversary, angelic, demonic being. It's going to be that thing putting himself in place of God. He's going to be descending down and saying, here I am, your savior, your Messiah. I've returned after 2,000 years. He's going to pretend to be the Son of God. He's going to pretend to be Jesus. That's what he's going to do. And most people who are currently waiting for that to happen, a lot of Christians, billions of them, no doubt, are going to believe it. Because that's what they've been indoctrinated to believe is to come next. Isn't that a long con? Isn't that a big deception? A grand deception, some sites say. It's a deception so large that even the very elect could be deceived. That's the biggest deception. You know, it doesn't get much bigger than that. And are you aware of any of this? Do you know that you could have been played so hard? Do you still think you revealing and exposing the signs and symbols is actually helping anything? Or do you still sincerely believe you're not just playing into their hands, but when you do these things, you're not just externalizing the hierarchy as they planned? It's time for us to play 4D chess now. We need to get smarter about what we're doing here. We need to wise up. We need to cut to the chase, as they say. You know, I don't know if time is short. I don't know how long a little season is. I'm not going to live in fear because it could be around the corner. I don't know. But at the same time, we've got to do better. I think as a getting nostalgically retrospective about the truth movement, which I'm proudly a member of. You know, I've got my place in it. I've given my piece of my Nephilim look like clowns thing and my musings on this. You know, I'm contributing. I'm here with you on the front lines. I'm trying, but it's kind of, we've got to be clever. We've got to know the tactics used against us here, and I'm sick of being played a little bit, you know, and I'm sick of watching other God-fearing, Jesus-loving, truth-following people sincerely trying to reveal the truth, but still just playing into their hands. And I think cutting through the bullshit is how we do it. Let's get straight to the point, straight to the end here. I think I'm giving you the end point. Oh, it's all orchestrated and controlled. Even the truth movement was controlled. You want to talk about controlled opposition? The whole truth movement was controlled opposition, and about 99% of the people in it didn't even know that's what they were. They didn't know that, because they sincerely believed we were actually exposing evil. That's how pernicious and intelligent our enemy is, the devil. He isn't stupid. That's how well he's played us. He's played in our pride, essentially. Well, we know the truth. That makes us better than everybody else. We're smarter than other people because we know what the real truth is. Pride. That's what he played on. He played on our pride to get us to externalize the hierarchy in a controlled manner. We can't be falling for that stuff anymore. Look, if we're in the little season and Christ has already ruled, then there's only one thing that has to be done. Get right with Christ. Get to know him. Understand what the plan is. Read the end of Revelation. Get to the end of the book and see what it says about what comes next after the millennial kingdom. Because if we're after the millennial kingdom, then there you go. And I know it sounds scary to a lot of people, but this is not a faith-killing subject. This should bring your faith up, because now you can know with absolute certainty, no faith required, Christ kept his promise, and he loves you. And he wants you to come back to the Father. And we can do that through him. All we have to do is accept his sacrifice that he made for us. And we will be saved. It's the good news. It's still good news now. And whatever comes next, you can hold steadfast in that. You can know it's okay. He's in control. If you don't have that in this time, you're gonna be deceived. You're gonna believe in aliens when they turn up. You're gonna believe whatever is next in their stupid agenda. You're going to think that the false Christ that presents himself is the real Christ. And you might think yourself righteous. Well, I refused the mark. I held steadfast till the end. I kept faithful all through tribulation, and now Christ is finally here to give me my just rewards and let me rule with him for 1,000 years. You might believe all of that, but if we're in the little season, you have another thing coming. Like, seriously, you're in trouble. And I have faith that Jesus is in control, and hopefully he'll let you see just in time. But think about that phrase, depart from me, I never knew you. If you've been lusting after a Christ to come, rather than the Christ that has already, then were you really following and going after the right person? Did you truly know Christ? You've got to be careful. We have to think now. We have to really think. Well, let's put on our thinking caps. I know we're just people and we're limited, but we've really got to think here. We've got to be smart about what we're doing. And that comes with questioning, when are we? Not just where. I know that's a big part of the conspiracy culture, to understand the nature of creation and cosmology. But where isn't going to save you? When might be closer to saving you, to understanding the truth. Like, if you don't know when you are in the time line, then everything else kind of is a little bit irrelevant, because you haven't contextualized yourself correctly. Everything else is off. Like, you're off base completely, by a few degrees, and that makes the entire building collapse. Just being off by a few degrees with one thing makes everything wonky from then on. What you're building on top of a crooked foundation. It's you have to know when you are first, before you can know who you are and where you are and what's going on. And that was the great trick, wasn't it? That was the sleight of hand. We all believe it's been 2,000 years since Christ's resurrection. and ascension, and we're still waiting for him to come back. When he likely came back somewhere around the time of 70 AD to 500 AD. And we don't even know how long that time truly was, because we can't even trust the historical record when it comes to this kind of thing. It's so complicated and messed up and orchestrated and controlled that the only thing we really can build our entire reality and faith upon is that Christ is real and God is real. And the gospel is the gospel. That's all we've got, really. Everything else is just shifting sand. So yeah, I'm repeating myself now. I'm rolling off on one here. I know. I do that sometimes. You know I do this sometimes. That's why you're here. But yeah, I have... These are the things I'm thinking about 24/7. I don't stop thinking about this. I'm trying to figure it out. And I used to have a big whiteboard back in the day where I'd note all these things down. But now it's all just up here and plastered on like the 500 plus videos on my channel. And, you know, the more I think about this little season topic and the initial visceral reactions to it, and the more I'm seeing a lot of these old channels I used to follow, which are still talking about the signs of the times and how Christ is about to return and the mark of the beast is being pushed on us. And it's kind of, I cringe seeing them now. It all seems so tacky, so cheap, so flimsy, just convoluted and unnecessary, and it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch, yeah. And like I said, when I got this clip of this guy who's there talking to Tucker Carlson, and he's saying like, so, you know, I got together with a bunch of really smart dudes, you know, these really clever, like, you know, church leaders and people, and they were talking to me about eschatology and the end times, you know, and as they were explaining, you know, all the signs of the times before tribulation comes upon us, and then we were thinking about the world we live in today, we started to cry, you know, and we started to realize, like, this is it, we're in that time now. And it's kind of like, you know, and then, you know, the apostles used to think this in their time, but they were wrong. It's clearly happening now in our time. It's kind of like, what do you mean the apostles were wrong? Can you not hear, like, you've just, like, made a huge leap. You were so close. It's kind of like, the apostles believed it was going to happen in their time because everything matched up and aligned. But it didn't happen in their time. No, it's happening in our time now, 2,000 years later. Can you understand how much of a stupid leap that is to make? Not only have you just said the apostles of Jesus Christ are wrong, you would then have the hubris to say it's all going to happen in my time. What? How can you be so close and then just jump so far away? Could it be, well, the apostles believed it was going to happen in their time? Maybe they were right. Let's look into it. There's no way they could have been wrong because Jesus himself told them what was going to happen. Could that be the case? But no, they make this leap. No, it must have happened in my time. It must be happening now. Or the people who control the world now in Satan's little season, with every resource at their fingertips, can easily make earthquakes happen in diverse places, tsunamis, wars, pestilence, famine. They can control the weather, for God's sake. They can do anything they want. Do you understand? They can make it seem like tribulation's upon us now. But if the apostles were saying in their time, everything's lined up, all the signs are here, Jesus is about to return imminently, is it possible they were right and Jesus did return imminently? I'm going to take the apostles at their word. I'm not going to pay attention to what that box in the corner of my living room is telling me. Okay, so I'm going to calm down, take a breath. I'm going to have a drink of coffee. I'm going to relax a little bit. We're going for an hour there, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this random little stream of consciousness. And this is just some of the stuff I like to think about in my spare time on a Wednesday afternoon. And, you know, that event 23 years ago kind of sparked my passion to get retrospective about the past 20 years and how far we've come and what we've learned and what we've discovered. And I think you all know what I'm talking about when I say these things. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for listening. And as always, God bless. Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather? It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really likes bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim looks like clowns. It's no laughing matter.
I want you to get together